Now, a request for the Clarence Devadass to come forward and give us a brief summary of the coffee table reports of the conversations that we had in the last few days. Father Clarence.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Good morning, everyone. I have 10 minutes, I won't say like Cardinal Board, 10 minutes plus, just to give a little summary of the conversations that we have had in this past week. And I've just put this as the emerging realities of Asia, the summary of group summaries of week 2. Now, we will all agree that it has been a very intense week and it's going to be an even more very intensive exercise to summarize all those conversations that we have had into some key points. Now, it is even more daunting to present this, especially when you have had the Cardinal presenting a synthesis on synodality, and now I have to present a little synthesis about what we have had. And I think as we come to the end of the week 2, it is so appropriate that this morning's gospel and the homily also was about reading the signs of the time. Jesus says, interpret the times. And so it is in that light that I would like to look at what has happened in this past week with regard to our small group conversations and your responses. But before I do that, just to keep in mind that we realize that as we look at the reports, and some groups have also indicated the names of bishops from which countries they come, we realize that the breadth and depth of Asia makes it almost impossible to understand the diversity of issues that impact this continent. And also, the responses have been very, very diverse. So in that light, I just want to keep this at the back of our minds. Now, I call this the Big C, the alternative Big C. Lunchtime, many of you have been going to the shopping mall called Big C. Now, this is the other Big C that I offer, which we have gone through in week 1, prior to week 1, and now week 1, week 2, and hopefully in week 3. I call these the consultations, conversations, the conversion, and communion. During the regional consultations in which many of you have been involved, we realized that we will need volumes to describe all the issues that concern Asia. And in that light, we identified 15 emerging trends. 15 emerging trends that were neither exhaustive nor written on stone. But the 15 emerging trends gave us a little framework, a catalyst for deeper conversations, that which we have had in this past 2 weeks. Just very quickly, I'm just going to go through this. I'm not going to read them, but these were the 15 that were published as the guide, in the guide document. And you can also get them. You also have received them in FABC papers number 165. The 15 are as follows. And so week 1 and week 2 were intended for that second level, which is the conversations that we have had. And while we actively listen to the country reports I presented to you last week, the 12 concerns that could be identified, this is just to refresh our memories. And so we entered into week 2, and our conversations were focused on some key concerns in Asia, as these also converged with your own concerns that were raised. And the methodology that we had employed or engaged with to be supported with theological foundations and papal documents. Some of you had asked in the beginning, why are we revisiting Fratelli Tutti, Laudato Si, Amoris Laetitia? And it is to be for this reason that we looked at it as theological foundations with the support of papal documents. And this past week, these are the 14 topics that we have somehow covered. Even though they were brief, but these were some of the things that were intended to spark deeper and more profound conversations. And as we did that, we also recognized that there were many other concerns that were not addressed. And we recognized that and we acknowledged that. And so, what do the small group conversations reveal? And I would like to offer you a 3-step framework for us to look at the group reports. It is not possible to list down everything that had been said. They are exhaustive. But in the sense that we want to look at it from 3 key ways of how we can look at it. One of the things that the reports show is that we celebrate our successes. In the reports, you were asked what activities, what things are being done. And we recognize that there are many, many things that are happening throughout Asia in the churches. In the reports they show. They were in the form of a call to action, formation, awareness, etc. And what the report, the group conversations also show is that as you listen to one another, you have broadened your horizon and you also discovered new creative, you can say pathways or Asian responses to the breadth and depth of the concerns of Asia. So I think the first step is to be able to recognize that a lot is already being done. And not that because this was a concern and nothing was done, it is just to be able to recognize and celebrate the good work that is already in Asia. The second step of that framework is to also recognize the gaps and to looking at the 20 reports throughout all the different topics to be able to recognize just 7 gaps that I was able to draw. I'm sure you can add on to this list or even reduce, but this is what I was able to do. The magnitude and the gravity of the issues before us can be very overwhelming. So I think some are saying that, it's a lot. We do not know where to begin. We do not know what to do. And the reports also show that the emerging issues, they reveal themselves in different places in different ways. So the gravity of certain issues may be pronounced in one particular area of Asia, but not in another part of Asia. So to be able to recognize that in some places, some things are more important than other things in other places. It also shows that the issues that we have been discussing are deep. The roots of these things are deep and far-reaching. In other words, no part of Asia is exempt from the effects of these emerging trends and concerns. It also shows that some of the responses lacked networking. In other words, in some parts it is more active, in some parts it's not. It sometimes depended on a personality, whether it's the priest or whether it's the bishop who is active or very aware of a certain concern, and that is promoted, but it lacked networking with others. It also shows that we have a lot of documents already in all these different issues, but it seemed to lack praxis. It means, we have it on paper, we have it in documents, but what is translated into action, there seemed to be a gap in that area. Much has been spoken about the formation of seminarians and clergy. And many of these concerns should become pastoral priorities for different countries, for different regions. I know I've reached 10 minutes, but just in a few minutes, I just want to offer some opportunities, some key words that I have grouped together so that all your responses could come under these umbrellas. And there are 10 opportunities, and I'm just going to run through them very quickly. Some of the words that we have seen, accompaniment, that have come up in our concerns for youth, for the different groups of people. They have asked for families, accompaniment. Listening has come out very strongly also, to be able to listen to the voice of the people. I think Cardinal Hollerich has also mentioned that in the synodal process, listening. Thirdly would be a communal discernment, as working together, listening to one another, and to discern together where the Spirit of God is leading. Another opportunity here is inclusivity, that no one is excluded from the church, that to be able to include everyone, everyone finds a place in that church. So we have heard words like the church being the field hospital, and other words to describe how we have to be inclusive. Creativity, in terms of how we reach out, evangelization, digital, online, on-site, to be able to be creative. Advocacy is another area that has come out quite clearly, how the church has to advocate different issues for the people. Collaboration, to work together, whether within the conferences or also between neighboring conferences, to work together for issues that transcend or go beyond just a local diocese or parish, to work together as one and to share resources. I think dialogue has come out very clearly, inter-religious dialogue, intra-religious dialogue in the reports also. We have spoken about peace or bridge building with one another through dialogue. It is not just inter-religious dialogue that we're talking about, dialogue with others, with governments, with other agencies in order to bring about peace. And the last point that kind of sums it up all is the synodal process, the synodality, the togetherness, that working as one church. So these are the 10 opportunities that we see in the group conversations. So the task remains, how do we connect all these dots? How do we connect all these gaps and opportunities? And I think this is where we move into week 3. Looking for new pathways. Having seen listened to the country reports, seen the concerns, what do we do? And hopefully as we move into week 3, we will find that new pathways for the church in Asia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Father Clarence, for this enlightening summary that you have presented. I'm sure you and your collaborators have burnt midnight oil to prepare it. Thank you very much.